Good evening. It is Monday, September 18th, 2023. This is a Kearney Board of Aldermen meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shirley, have you had a chance to take roll?
I have taken roll. Everybody is present but Alderman Spencer, and she will be absent tonight. You do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to public hearings. First item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing scheduled to receive public comment regarding the proposed change to the city's parking restrictions ordinance. If you wish to speak for or against the proposed ordinance changes, I'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we'll give you the opportunity to address the board. Also, there is a sign-in sheet up there if you could sign in as well. So at this time, I will open the floor for public comment and input.
So this evening, there is a proposed ordinance that will be receiving public comments on. This became a topic after a resident reached out regarding concerns because of the lack of visibility of children crossing into the street between vehicles on a street that she drives on often, and also concerned that the cars that were parked on the side of the street caused visibility issues for backing out of driveways. At that time, city staff started looking at it, and we found out that there was already an existing ordinance on the books, and at that time, we passed out notice to residents on those streets, letting them know that there is an existing ordinance and that we would be enforcing that ordinance. When that happened, another resident called and said, hey, why does this ordinance prohibit parking on the north side of the street? Because all the fire hydrants are on the south side of the street, so you would have vehicles that are blocking fire hydrants. And I said, well, I don't know, let's look into it. What we found out was that the ordinance had been put into place in 1984, and the street that the resident called on, that part of the street had not yet been built out in 1984 when that ordinance had originally went into effect. And so at that time, we decided to ask police, fire, and public works to look at propose what changes would need to be made to the existing ordinance. And that is the ordinance that is proposed and that we're going to be receiving public comments on tonight. And really that came into fact not only the visibility on different streets, but also possible delayed response times for emergency vehicles. If you have cars parked on both sides of the street, staff was concerned that there might be a delay if you have oncoming traffic and an emergency vehicle needs to go one way. And also the fire department's aerial truck needs a clearance of 25 feet to be set up. So if they have to use their aerial truck, there has to be 25 feet of clearance for them to be able to set that up. And so that is how the proposed ordinance that you guys are going to be hearing public comments on tonight is in existence.
All right, thank you. The floor is open for public comment and input. Did you sign in?
Yes.
All right, if you could state your name and address for the record, you have the floor.
My name is Kelly Beard. I live at 303 Meadowbrook Drive. I'm the very first house that you turn into across from Oak Point. I don't mind so much the no parking ordinance but I would suggest that it only be posted during school hours because Meadowbrook Drive is the main road up and down all day long, and in football season for all the football games, for all the traffic. If anything, in my opinion, they need to put a roundabout at 92 or at Yes, at 92 in Meadowbrook, because the school buses back up traffic on Meadowbrook all the time. Whenever they are parked there trying to go north on 92, they have the traffic that is coming southbound is turning into Meadowbrook. The buses don't have enough clearance for them to turn out, and so they sit and they wait until there's more space so they can maneuver their buses onto 92 North. It creates a major backup. I live right there, and thank God I work from home now, and I do not back out of my driveway anymore because it was almost impossible to get out in the morning to go to work. So I think putting a roundabout in would help with our traffic flow from all the school traffic, because if you put a traffic count or whatever they do to count the traffic, there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that road. And then all the people in Dovecot, that's the only way in and out of their neighborhood too. They should have another exit out of the neighborhood, either Jesse James Road or over to 19th Street. It's just a lot of traffic up and down that street. And I can have my people that come to visit me park on the side street. That's not an issue because I live right there on the corner. But and like I said, if they're going to restrict the parking, I think it should only be during school operational hours.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your thoughts and feedback with us. I will let you know why you're here. I have been in contact with a resident just a couple houses down from you, and he's set meetings with myself and our local MoDOT engineer about safety concerns at 33 South and Meadowbrook Drive. Especially,
I'm confused.
that's fine. Yeah, especially during school session, buses backing up and it becoming an unsafe intersection for traffic to get out on 33. So
I did contact MoDOT last year and suggested that.
Okay.
They said they would think about it or
Yeah,
whatever.
we haven't received any. They're going to do a traffic count and some other information. We haven't received anything
They've never
back.
done one. There's never been anything put on the road to count the traffic.
I'm hopeful that we've got their attention, and hopefully we can be a good partner with MoDOT, and because that part of the road is state 33. The city road is Meadowbrook.
And from what I hear, Greenfield across 33 is going to bring their road out of the neighborhood right at Meadowbrook, is what I've heard.
Yeah, eventually, as that subdivision continues to develop, yes. But thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks.
Okay. Would anybody else like to address the board on the topic?
Hello, my name is Rebecca Palmer and I live at 804 Southbrook Parkway. It is on the east side of Southbrook Parkway between Stonecrest and Clear Creek Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to share our input on this proposal. I'm sure everybody here is thankful too. Typically, there are two main considerations when discussing parking restrictions on residential streets. One is the accessibility of the street. Residents want easy access to their neighborhoods without disruption of efficiency and maintaining their convenience. And the second one is obviously safety, regarding emergency access to them and pedestrian safety. Balancing both of these considerations can pose finding a solution difficult, but safety should always outweigh any inconveniences. So to talk about some of the logistics about it, a typical vehicle width is about 6 foot wide. The width of a fire truck is 8 to 10 feet wide. Standard allowance for driving lanes is typical width of 10 feet on the roadway, and standard allowance for emergency vehicles is around 20 feet of the roadway. A 32-foot wide residential street allows for 2 6-foot parking lanes on either side of the street and 2 10-foot driving lanes. A 26-foot wide residential street allows for 1 6-foot parking lane on one side of the street and 2 10-foot driving lanes. Both of these street sizes with allotted parking will allow for right-of-way in either direction without disturbing the flow of traffic and still allows access for all of emergency vehicles. Both the 32-foot and 62-foot streets are common in residential areas and are most commonly found here in Kearney. Improving safety of residential roadways has been studied for years, trying to provide insight on what the ideal road and lane widths should be in order to provide optimal driving conditions while not compromising any of the safety of our pedestrians. A study published in the Transportation Research Record entitled Design Factors That Affect Driver Speed on Suburban Streets states that as the width of the lane increased, the speed of the roadway increased. When lane widths are 3.3 feet greater, speed widths are predicted to be 9.4 miles per hour faster. Wider travel lanes are correlated with higher vehicle speeds. Another study cited in the NACTO publications researched in particularly if narrowing streets had any effect on reduced speeds in residential neighborhoods and included the variables on-street parking, which is exactly what we're talking about today. Wider vehicle streets experienced higher speeds, and on-street parking density significantly affected those speeds. They quote, "Wide streets with parking density have a wide effective width and virtually no calming effect. Without the influence of other moving or parked vehicles, the width of the street promotes speed. To effectively lower the speeds in the design of new streets and curb-to-curb width should be 28 to 30 feet with parking allowed on both sides." And this makes complete sense. Where there are parked cars, there is a perception that there isn't enough room, so cars inherently slow down to let other cars pass or to pass the parked vehicle. Even though there is physically enough room for them to pass, the perception creates a feeling that slower speeds are needed. A prime example of this would be Regency Drive. Many Kearney residents use this as a cut through to the middle of town, especially since Watson Drive has been closed, using it to bypass the street lights and busy roads, and it becomes quite inconvenient to have to slow down around all the other parked cars when all we're trying to do is get to a faster route. Myself included, I've used it as a cut through. However, the parked cars create a perception of obstacles that make us slow down. This is ideal for residential street like Regency Drive. The purpose of this road is not to make it faster for us to get to the grocery store, it's for the people who live in that neighborhood. It is a residential street where people live and children play. It is a good thing that we are required to slow down. Speeding down this road could easily result in poor outcome. Drivers' inconvenience should never outweigh the roadway safety. The study also considered something that you mentioned previously, and that was the driver's visibility of pedestrians. And I quote, it says, "Driver visibility of pedestrians may be reduced, especially with high parking densities, where children may dash out from behind parked vehicles. However, lower speeds reduce the required stopping distance." Basically, it is still safer to park in the road because it reduces the speed of the driver. My first oppositional point is that Southbrook Parkway east of Stonecrest did not exist when the original ordinance was created in 1984. This road, as it approaches 19th Street, splits into the median and creates two narrow lanes, which is my presumption as the reason for the original parking restriction in 1984. However, the new addition of Stonecrest neighborhood allotted for Southbrook Parkway to be 32 foot wide from Stonecrest to Clear Creek Drive. And as mentioned previously, 32 feet is enough room to park on both sides of the street, having two driving lanes. Allowing parking on the street also creates safer environments for residents in this neighborhood. I currently park in the street intermittently to block my driveway. The sole reason that I do this is to provide a physical barrier between the speeding cars and my children who are playing in the driveway. It creates a visible reminder for them to not chase the ball into the street. Speeding has been an issue for many years on my road, and although KPD makes an effort to patrol, sit at the four-way to discourage speeding, but they cannot be there all the time. Parking on the street provides another step to secure the safety of my children, and that is not just my opinion. This is backed by data from researchers who are much smarter than I am. My second opposition is that parking restrictions are not citywide. This proposed ordinance is only selecting a certain few roads. Why aren't all residential streets on this ordinance? You mentioned 25 feet needed for emergency vehicles, but most of the roads are 26 feet. That would allow for no parking on any of the residential streets. I am not allowed to park on my 32-foot road, but Stonecrest, which is adjacent to mine, is 32 foot as well, and parking is allowed on both sides of that street. Why is this only targeting a select few residential neighborhoods? For instance, there are no streets on this proposal for any roads in subdivisions west of town. Oakwood Estates, Hills of Westwood, Cedarwood. What about the older part of Kearney, Prospect, Grove, Woods, and any of the numbered streets downtown? What about Jamestown, White Gates, Greenfield? Most of these proposed streets are targeted to the Stonecrest and Southbrook subdivisions. What makes the 26-foot and 32-foot roads in my subdivision different from the roads in your all subdivisions? I looked up all the aldermen's addresses on the Clay County Assessor's website. Coincidentally, 3 of the 4 of them live on 26-foot wide streets. 1 of them lives on a 32-foot wide street. And coincidentally, all of those streets are not on this proposed list. That means this ordinance does not affect your ability to host birthday parties, have company over for a Chiefs game, host birthday celebrations at your house, or most importantly, does not affect your ability to keep your children safe. There are many solutions to increasing the safety of my road, but parking restrictions is not one of them. In closing, I have a well-lit, 32-foot wide paved street in front of my house that is on this proposed restriction, and almost every other street in Kearney is as wide as or more narrow than mine. If I cannot park on this ideal road designed for parking and driving, then neither should any other resident in Kearney, regardless of their subdivision or their street. The reality is that parking cars reduces speed and makes the road safer, and the safety should always take precedence over the inconvenience of having to slow down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm Morgan Ryan. I live at 1708 Regency. I actually sent in an email because I didn't think I'd have the guts to get up here, but that girl just killed it. I'm not nearly as eloquent of a speaker as her, but I'm going to read the email that I sent in. Then I'll sign it. I gotta focus. Mrs. Ernson and Kearney Board of Aldermen. I'm a lifelong resident of the Kearneyville area and lived on Regency Drive with my family for the last 5.5 years. I have 2 small children, ages 2 and 5, and we spend much of our free time out in the front of our house as our backyard is not ideal. We live on the west side of Regency and frequently park our vehicles in the road directly at the end of our own driveway when spending time outside. We do this for multiple reasons. The main reason is people fly up and down our street as if it were a drag strip. It seems to somewhat slow people down when their vehicles parked in the road. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've called the cops. Unfortunately, we don't see much done about it. I know the cops are busy, but I see them out watching and running radar, but only at the end of Regency that already has stop signs and curbs. I live on the street away towards 19th Street. We have nothing. The second reason is that I've seen extremely reckless driving, texting, swerving, etc., and I feel my children are much more protected with our vehicles blocking the end of our driveway. It also gives our kids the open driveway space to ride their bicycles since we have no sidewalks, and Regency clearly is not a safe place for our children to ride their bikes. Our family tends to have large gatherings, and only parking on the opposite side of the road would not only be irritating for our neighbors, but also an inconvenience for our friends and family. We've already received a notice for parking in our own yard when having company and working on a backyard update, so that's not an option either. Taking away another available area for parking would be ridiculous. The issue on Regency Drive is not homeowners parking their vehicles on the side of the road. The problem is the idiot drivers who excessively speed with no repercussions. I sincerely hope that this is all taken into consideration.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
My name is Pam Burback. I live at 1601 Marble Drive. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come and make comments on this proposal. I do question how you could automatically apply a 1984 rule to neighborhoods that hadn't even been built yet, such as our 16th in Stonecrest. So that's a question. It seems like that ought to be explored a little bit more. But I'm a grandma, but we have school kids that get on the bus from our neighborhood, and I watch them all the time from the corner. What'll happen? By the way, we live on the south side, so we would not be impacted according to the way this is set up, theoretically. But what will happen is our good neighbors who have multiple cars, I think would be compelled to park on our side of the street. In our particular situation, we're at the corner of 16th and Marble, where there's a stop sign. As soon as our neighbors are forced to park elsewhere because they literally have too many cars, then that's going to block the visual from the people coming from the east. So that's going to make for more accidents right there, right at the corner where kids catch the bus. I see up to 20 kids a day there. And agreeing with some of the other ladies who commented, in our situation going east on 16th, there are cars on either side, and it makes everyone slow down. I've actually recently spoken to the police to ask them if they would come and set up a car, because what happens is where those cars are parked more in the street, people do slow down automatically. But as soon as they get past that, they are flying down our street at sometimes 45, 50 miles an hour. Crazy dangerous. So if cars then are parking on the south side of the street, if this ordinance goes through, it's going to create more of a hazard. So I'd like you to really consider what is happening there. And also, just very last point, it would be minor to us, but it would impact us when we have family and friends come over. Are we going to have neighbor conflict? Because people are now having to park elsewhere that they couldn't park before. And we love our neighbors and want to keep getting along with them. But these are all things that need to be taken into consideration. But as several have already stated, I know our policemen are busy. We love them, we support them. But is there a way to have the police be more regular about checking in these spots where there are speeding issues, where there are dangerous issues, just like they rightly did at the start of school, where they were on 19th and just kind of nabbing some of the kids and saying, slow down. So speed is more of an issue here and not so much getting through, and I'd like you all to really consider that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danielle Hankins. I live at 413 Meadowbrook Drive. And I actually was going to echo a lot of the things you said. I didn't bring my research, but what you said about Stone Creek, what is it? Where you live, Southbrook, is my concern with Meadowbrook. We've lived there 9 years, and since I've lived there, I have seen there's a corner on Meadowbrook. Come in from her home, it turns, and then there are no streets that face Meadowbrook on the north side, but it's a straightaway all the way to the high school and beyond, and we've seen people drag these 2 down the road, 3 down the road, next to each other. I've lived there 9 years, and I have seen the person on that curve, their back fence, be crashed into 3 times and a fire hydrant hit. And not because of parked cars. There are no parked cars at those times in those spaces. Somebody has moved there where they do park a car close to that spot. But I'm also a teacher, so I'm leaving about 7 o'clock every day. And when there are cars parked on the road, I can pass a bus and no one is having to stop or slow down. So people are parked, a bus is passing me, and I'm passing without anybody having any cause for congestion. Nobody's having to stop and let people pass. At the end of the road at 33, there are 3 lanes, and the road does not get any smaller. There's a turning lane in the middle with 2 lanes to turn into the neighborhood and 1 to turn right. And I also did the measurements, like 32 feet all the way down Meadowbrook. But my concern is more speed. And again, if I think when the cars are there, like on Friday night football games, people park all the way down there, and I don't care. It's all the way down to my house, past where the trail crosses the road. But are those people going to be ticketed? Because I don't know where else they're going to park whenever those parking lots are full. And so again, I think maybe during school hours, I agree that could be a visibility problem, but I have seen people speed constantly, every day, every time I'm out. I've called the cops on people. I've asked for more patrol. I would really like to see a speed bump, rather, to get people to slow down. A couple on that street, especially if it goes all the way through, people just fly down that road. Our driveway is not so flat, and so I will also park my car at the end of the road so my kids' basketballs don't come out in the street where people are flying 50 miles an hour. As soon as they get around that curve, it's a straightaway, and they just hit the gas. So I would, instead of getting rid of the parking, which currently is only on one side of the street, there is a no parking sign on the north side. For that most of the way, there's no parking signs all the way up and down behind the football field, that grass area. Instead of taking away the one side where teenagers, people who have multiple cars, and guests can park, I would like to see more like a speed bump where it would slow drivers down, and then that would hopefully help with any visibility between parked cars as well. I have one more point. I think I said my piece. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, I'm Bill Brown, and I know most of you guys here, so hello. I live at 1013 East 15th Street, and it was on the list from Clear Creek Drive to west to the cul-de-sac. So, and it says for one lane, no side, parking on that side, but my thing would be is for the lady who called in and had a concern for the kids. I mean, you're protecting half of the kids on that street. So you're doubling up cars on one side of the street, which makes it worse for kids playing on one side of the street. So if and trust me, when my wife and I drive down our street, there's not a time goes by that I don't look at our street and say, it's a mess. I think it is, and there's a lot of times I'm like, do we stay here or do we get out of here? But I will tell you is, with cars on both sides of the street, I drive a lot slower than I do when it's open. And so the speed that would be picked up because of the cars being on one side, I believe makes it more dangerous for all the kids and children playing on that one side with all the cars. So I have a lady who lives across the street from me who has the cops over there all the time. She's never called them on me, she calls them on her neighbor. So when people call in, they just have noise and they have things to do, and I believe it's great that you guys listen and try to research and stuff, but I do believe that from what I see on our street is there's not a lot of cars that pass on that street, so I'm not even sure why that street is chosen. But the fact is I know driving it every day that cars will go faster when they don't have to worry about two cars on each side of the street. And one side of the kids, I think, will be at a lot more subject to a lot faster cars for their safety. I truly believe this. Another thing I believe is that with cars packed on one side of the street, from what I see from traveling streets all the time in real estate, is that we will be forcing cars to fit more space in on those sides of the street because these neighborhoods have 2-car garages and they don't have a third car space. They have children that grow up and they have no place to park their cars. Kids have to park in the street so the parents can get out of their driveways in the day. So I believe there will be more cars trying to force in on that side of the street, making it also more difficult when the trash people come down the street. They'll have a wider street, but there'll be a lot more people that are trying to edge in on my driveway to cause it a lot harder for trash pickup at the same time. Right now, I gotta put my trash cans off on the side in the driveway so we can back out, because especially since our days changed, they don't even come till late in the day now. So I believe this will be an issue for another part of that looking at it. I do have a men's study group, and I believe, like the lady said, with birthday parties, all these things, I have a men's study group on Tuesdays that does a lot of great for men in this community. And we have about 20 men who come right now, and we are growing on a daily basis. But we are gonna be forced to put those men in other people's yards, and they're gonna be forced to park farther away on subjects of things as far as trying to come home and do things. People can say, I need to go somewhere, but it's not fair to say, why are other people in other neighborhoods not having to live by the same rules, right? So I will stick by that too. I believe that one of the other things that gets me in this thing a little bit is I have a neighbor who can't even take care of their yard. They leave their dog chained to a door in the back of the house, and I watch police drive by. I love the police officers, it's not against you, but I watch people drive by daily, and nobody ever has a saying or sends anybody to take care of that stuff. And it's one person starts or two people talk about kids' safety. I get it, but we have to look at the whole picture of everything. So a single incident is one thing, but having it all in there, it upsets me that I can't even get my neighbors to take care of their stuff, which devalues my property at the same time. And now, I will agree, I'm on the south side of the street, so the cars aren't parked in my way, but I can tell you is, when I go to sell a house or I go to do something, and there's cars all packed up and people piled up on one side of the street, those houses are probably gonna be less looked at than the houses on the south side of the street, at least on my street. That's all I got for you guys, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Robert Mahaffey. I live at 1102 East 15th Street. Our street is 28 feet wide, roughly, give it a little bit. I've measured it. I took the dimensions of a 3/4 ton Chevy truck, which is 82 inches wide. Put that directly across from each other, that leaves over 12 to 14 feet between those vehicles. Your fire trucks, ambulances, school buses, trash trucks, all range from 95 to 100 inches wide. So they can drive through there with no problems. When you first sent out the notices on our street, some of the neighbors started parking on the other side of the street, so they were gonna comply. And what happened is everybody started flying down the street again. When there's, echoing what these people have said, when there's cars on both sides, they have to slow down. And when they're not there, they fly down the street where I can't even pull out of my driveway or pull in my driveway without worrying about who's gonna be coming down the street because they're not doing 25 miles an hour. We have emergency services here, sir. When you guys are responding to a call in the neighborhood, how fast are you driving through the neighborhoods?
I can't answer.
You're not really going, 40 miles an hour to the neighborhood to a call, most likely.
No, especially residential.
Right, so for emergency services to be able to get through to emergency calls, that's not an issue. They're running lights and sirens, people are gonna stop and give them the right of way, even if there are cars on both sides of the street. And again, I measured them, took the widest truck other than a 1-ton dually, and there's plenty of room. And if we're gonna keep going down the street, I'm concerned with it only being certain streets myself. And I echo speed bumps. If we're gonna do this, then we have to put speed bumps all over town to slow people down. And how economical is that to the city of Kearney for putting all speed bumps in? Snow plows are gonna be tearing them up. That's a lot of issues. I think we should just not let you park wherever you want. There's enough restrictions. Within 8 feet of a mailbox, within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, 4 feet of a driveway. There's already a lot of restrictions on homeowners in these neighborhoods that we have to abide by. By adding more, it's not fair to the residents for using our houses for what we purchased them for. Family get-togethers, graduations, holidays. It wouldn't make Kearney a very fun place to live. It would really be an injustice to the citizens.
Thank you for your time.
Research, you did a great job.
One thing I'll mention, you can go ahead and come on up, Carla, is just you're addressing the board. So please, any comments or feedback, come to us, please. Thank you.
I'm Carla Maxwell at 709 Meadowbrook Drive. Thank you for letting us discuss this a little bit. I'm totally against doing the no parking on both sides of that road, just because if you go down that road now, we've been in our house 20 years, and a lot of those other houses were already there. And as we were driving down here today, I look, and a lot of those other houses, their driveway's short. So if you put, even our driveway, if you put a truck and a car in front of each other, we're blocking the sidewalk. So if we're gonna take all these cars off the street, people are gonna start parking behind each other, all these sidewalks are gonna be blocked. So all the kids on the bicycles, walking, whatever, are gonna go in there on the street to get around it. Because they're all short, a lot of them are short driveways. So that's an issue that I had there, because parking on the street helps them to where they can allow their driveway a little bit more room, and then opens up the sidewalk more on that. And if you make it no parking, then I would expect the police to come at when the high school and junior high gets out and the elementary gets out, to come and make those people get off the road because they're parking on that road, because I've had to get in that line and just wait to get in my driveway, so that happens. So if I can't park on that road, I don't want those people waiting to pick up their kids parking on that road either. So that's another issue. I know they're waiting to pick up their kid, but they are parked on that road. So, and we can get by a parked car and a bus coming, and we can pass them just fine. And if there's emergency vehicles blocking part of that road, there's ways out for Dovecot. They can go through the school, or, there's ways out of the place. There's not just one way in and one way out. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joseph Clevenger. I live at 811 South Road Parkway. So section 355.010 says that it shall be unlawful for the operator of a motor vehicle to stop, stand, or park said motor vehicle at any one time. My part-time gig, I mow lawns. So you're making it now illegal for me to park on the side of the road where I need to take care of someone's yard. Same thing with everyone that's been hit by hail this June and July. I've got people coming out to fix my roof, so they're gonna be parked on the road. They've got dumpsters that they're gonna fill it up with my shingles. There's a lot of different situations. We got handymen, we got people that work trades that need to park on the road just because they're giving it the convenience for the homeowner. But I think that there's a lot of other roads that are probably more difficult to get around. Oak Ridge is one, to get to Pinecrest. I know that there's a lot of vehicles that park. I go down Oak Ridge to get to Pinecrest to one of my yards, and with me having a truck and a trailer, I have to go almost 2, maybe 3 miles an hour because with all the big vehicles on one side and vehicles on the other, and I have a trailer that swivels. If you have an engine or a ladder truck, they don't swivel. There's a lot of, that's gonna be a lot of time to get to an emergency scene. So that's one thing. Also, to kind of piggyback from Rebecca, we moved to Kearney because it's a great family-oriented town. And with you guys, with the city wanting to enable this ordinance, it makes it so that we can't host family events, my daughter's birthdays, Chiefs games. I mean, there's just countless things. Also on my street is the hot dog house for Halloween. They do a good light show for Halloween, Christmas, and people stop and watch those all the time. But the biggest thing is if you take cars off the sides of the road, you're basically making it into a drag strip. If you have people that don't use their garages for their vehicles, they're parked in the driveway, kids can easily come out from in between the two cars into the road to chase a ball or whatever, and then if you're speeding at 25 going 30, 35 miles an hour, it takes a lot longer for it to stop. So there's a lot of safety issues in that aspect. So another thing is, my wife and I, we moved to Kearney because, again, it is a family-oriented town. We love it here, but it makes us, if the city is wanting to just enable this whenever, and at least not taking the citizens into consideration, it makes people want to leave, because what's going to stop the city from enabling it to any other street? If you're only hand-picking different roads and going back to you need 25 foot of clearance for an aerial truck, you basically eliminated every road at that point. Because even in an emergency scene, in a structure fire, you're shutting down the road anyways. There's hoses everywhere. There's the aerial's up with its outriggers. There's a lot going on. So it's not like they can really go in. It's not like anyone can go anywhere anyways. So there's a lot of things going on, and I think there's different things that we can address. If anything, if you're looking at something, you can make it where during, with Southbrook being as wide as it is, during inclement weather, make it a no parking for the inclement weather, so that because it's an emergency plow for our snowplow trucks. So but we need to be able to have the parking on our roads, because as people's kids are getting older, they're driving, they need to have that extra parking. It's just, I run a business, I poured a third driveway spot for my trailer, I use my garages, but I still park my vehicles on the side to deter people from speeding down my road so my 2-year-old doesn't run out in the street. I do keep an eye on my 2-year-old, but there's things that happen where anything can happen. I mean, if anything, if someone is flying down a road and they lose control, they can at least hit my vehicle and my family's safe. So, trying to go through, that's pretty much all I have. So, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Rishi. I live at 1313 Clear Creek Drive. And the reason I'm addressing this is the way that the section 355.010 sounds is nobody can stop, stand, or park their motor vehicle. So it doesn't eliminate postal service. They can't stop or do any of that. What happens with the garbage delivery? Do we have to take it across the street? Because I live on the east side of the street, as well as the majority of our houses. There's only like 4 other houses that are on the west side, and we have all of it down there. And everybody walks on the opposite side. They actually all walk on the west side. We rarely have any human traffic coming through except for people walking their dogs. But the kids are all on the other side. As well as the bus stops, etc. They're on the other side. If anything, we should have limited parking on the west side because there's very few houses over there, and that would actually slow people down. For us, we basically, that whole string, all the way from 92 to East 13th Terrace, there's a row of people who will never be able to have any guests over if they have more than, say, 3 or 4, depending on their parking area usage. So if they can't park, in your driveway, then they can't have any guest over. I'm in agreement with the majority of people here who are saying, look, you're limiting our capability of entertainment. And that is definitely true. The other thing is, you're eliminating the ability for anybody to deliver packages to our house because they're not allowed to stop, stand, or park. So we can't get, UPS. We can't get any type of, like Nebraska Furniture Mart. They have to park on the other side, and that's more of a concern with people walking across the road than parking in front of our houses. So I have a big concern about that. Furthermore, if we have anything being delivered, whether, it's minor or not, you're basically, we're having to tell people, park on the other side, or we're gonna add in front of all our houses, do not parking or no parking anytime or whatever, which really devalues our ability for our home, for people enjoying coming there. And I've had yard service. I have people who come and take care, quarterly, part of my yard. So now they're not going to be able to park in front of my house. And none of them ever use my driveway, and I don't want them to, because that actually can break down my driveway. So I really have a concern, since we are a new development, basically 2016, or 2015 maybe, when they did all the zoning and stuff. But basically, we weren't even in effect with this ordinance that was in effect in 1984. But I understand y'all took a look at everything, but I really am confused, because we rarely have parking on our side of the street, rarely. And if anything, it would be the west side, but even at that, it's not that frequent. So I'm really confused as to why we did this. We have an extremely large street. There's never been any issue with parking on both sides and two roadways, two cars coming and going. So I don't understand why this was picked at all. And I don't know, y'all said that it was based on people providing input, but I don't understand that input, how they decided that. But anyway, that's basically what I have to say. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would wish to provide?
I'm going to go in reverse. I'm Sandy Snook, and I live at 1109 Ada. Years ago, a mayor hit a car driving the snowplow. They said, okay, we'll make no parking on the east side of Ada, those 2 blocks. They put the signs up on the west side. At the time, the duplexes had small driveways, and they did park in the street. But Bernie made parking pads for them. Very seldom do people park on the streets down there. So I don't know why it would be an issue to make no parking there. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Gabe Bevan. I live on 603 Meadowbrook Drive, so about the 4th Meadowbrook person here. I live just shy of the high school entrance there off of Meadowbrook. My house sits back a little further. I have a huge driveway, so it really doesn't cause any issue for me. I got plenty of room to park, but my neighbors don't. So we all have adult children, seniors, juniors in high school, and so, their driveways are pretty full. But only reason we would ever have a problem probably on Meadowbrook or that I would run into a problem is when the neighbors and their friends all park in the driveway, because then they block the sidewalk, and then you have to walk out to the sidewalk. You go like walk your dog every night, and all the cars are, just 2 cars deep, and there's most of those driveways will kind of block that sidewalk, so you can't move that. There is already no parking on the other side of the street, along the field, and that long stretch there. So I just don't really see too much of a need for no parking on both sides. And I also have a senior daughter who, my house is the meeting spot for many senior girls going to football games and basketball games. And so they do park out there a lot, and we're constantly yelling at them to move their cars and don't park in front of the fire hydrant. But other than that, we don't use that too much, but still, I don't really see a need for it there. So, oh, and one other thing, while I got your attention, the crosswalk by the pickleball courts, I don't know if anybody's ever brought that up, but nobody really observes that or slows down there, kind of by Stone Lake. So there's the one east of the high school that has a flashing light, I think. But then there's that one across from Stone Lake that people just fly by there. And I go walk my dog almost every night. And was it Thursday last week? Slowed down to look to see if a car's coming, and I see a red truck coming over the hill, and the guy literally lays on his horn as soon as he sees me, way up past the pickleball courts, and honks all the way down, just telling me, do not step out on that road, do not step out on that road. And then was like yelling at me as he drove by me but that happens a lot. So might want to think about putting a little flashing light at that place too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And that crosswalk is slated for some safety improvements, much like we did at the other 2 east of there. So awesome. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Jerry Maxwell. My wife was up here earlier. I'm just going to state some of the things that I think that we need to consider. One, we built our house. We live at 709 Meadowbrook. We built it in 2003. When our house was built, Meadowbrook wasn't an issue, Meadowbrook Drive, because that wasn't even the way you got to the school campus. Nobody even came in and out that way hardly. Now it's the main thoroughfare, which we have no problem with that. We know that. But I think you're looking at something that was back in '84, and the north side does have a few no parking signs on it, and I think that's fine. We can keep them parking on the north side. But I don't know if you are aware of a lot of the traffic that actually takes place on that road. Friday night football games, other things like that. And they got a big crowd. There's not enough parking at school to hold everybody. They're up and down that street. We don't complain. We know it. You know, I think we just need to leave it the way it is. I've gone up and down that street with some pretty good sized rigs, and they've had people parked on the south side. You can drive through there, don't have to wait, pull over, nothing. There's plenty of room. I haven't measured it, but Meadowbrook is probably one of the wider streets in this town. And I just, we're gonna state the fact that I think the north side's fine, leave the rest of it alone. I appreciate the time and y'all letting everybody come in and speak their mind. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? What effect does our input have on the decision that will be made? Or how that decision will be made?
Yeah, so after the public hearing process, the board will make a decision, and obviously, we're here to hear your thoughts on the topic. So that's why you're given the opportunity to speak. We represent you guys. So anybody else wish to speak for or against? Seeing nobody.
Mayor, during the public hearing, I have comments that were received by email that I'm going to read into the record.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I'm doing them in the order that they were received. So the first one is from Jim Clayton, 724 Southbrook Parkway.
It's my neighbor.
Okay, here goes. First of all, I'm not exactly sure of this safety issue. We live on Southbrook, close to the intersection of Stonecrest. Southbrook is plenty wide enough for street side parking. If we seriously want to address safety concerns, you need to look no further than policing. We constantly see vehicles blowing through the intersection, almost always northbound or southbound traffic. Also, speed is a huge factor, so I'm very concerned that if we open up the roadway, it will become even worse. Then there's the issue of having get-togethers. Where exactly do you propose our company to park? I would be at the meeting Monday, but I will be out of town. I would be free Thursday and Friday evenings if anyone would like to have a sit-down. Sincerely, Jim Clayton. Matt Morris. As a resident on a street listed for restrictions, I agree with the city's safety concerns and restrictions on parking in the street. With obvious parking available in driveways, it only makes sense to take the concern of damage to people and property to heart. As a safety issue, the city should take these restrictions and enforce them. Jerry Hearn, 1100 South Prospect. I'll not be able to attend the public meeting regarding the subject ordinance, but please know that I am in favor of the entirety of this new ordinance. Respectfully, Jerry Hearn, 1100 South Prospect Street. Leon and Karen Stone, 318 West 19th Street. We are Leon and Karen Stone living at 318 West 19th Street. We live on the corner of Regency Drive and 19th Street. We are not opposed to the restriction of parking on the west side of Regency, but would rather see no parking on either side of the street. Since there are no sidewalks in Regency subdivision, there are a lot of walkers and children in the area. It would cut down on accidents in the area. We have lived in Kearney since 1977 and have seen numerous changes to the city. We have been told by a former police officer that no parking signs were originally in place along Regency Drive, but the residents removed them and they were never replaced. There was also a speed bump by the swimming pool, but the snow plows damaged it and it was never replaced. Cars are constantly speeding along Regency, and some child is going to get hit or property will be damaged unless the speed limit is enforced. Parking restrictions should also be in place for Patricia Street and Sunset Street Patricia Street is extremely narrow and parking on both sides of the street makes it hard to get through. We don't understand why sidewalks were not put in Regency subdivision, but it would be so nice for walkers instead of having to dodge vehicles when they are trying to get to the walking trails in Greenfield. We are lucky enough to have had sidewalks put in front of our home when 19th Street was widened a few years ago. We would hope that once the new parking restrictions are in place that they will be enforced. We hope you will take our suggestions into consideration. Thanks so much. Mike McNally, 100 East 6th Street. Dear members of the hearing and esteemed attendees, I am grateful for the opportunity to convey my thoughts via this email, given my absence from the meeting. Regarding the proposed changes encompassing various streets, I cannot speak for all of them, but my comments may find resonance with several. Specifically, I find the proposition concerning Meadowbrook rather perplexing, as the street's width comfortably accommodates up to 4 vehicles side by side. Even if vehicles were parked on both sides, it would still permit 2 vehicles to safely pass each other. Meadowbrook, where we reside as property owners, is probably one of the more spacious streets in our community, with parking restrictions already in place in the northern segments closer to the school campus grounds. As for our streets and neighborhoods, I have reservations about the viability of this proposal for a few reasons. Firstly, the issue of alternative parking locations begs attention. Consider a scenario where a family has 3 driving-age children, leading to a household with 5 cars. Given that most driveways can only accommodate 4 vehicles, it appears unreasonable to expect families to resort to parking on their lawns or in designated spots in the community. Should this proposal be enacted, will the city provide additional legal overnight parking areas to mitigate the shortfall? Secondly, this measure would potentially impede the ability to host gatherings at one's home. What recourse is there when one needs to accommodate visitors during events like birthday parties, Thanksgiving, or Christmas? Must we arrange to shuttle our guests within our own city? On our block, for example, my neighbors and I, whose children have been a part of the football team, have often had friends over before football games, followed by a walk to the stadium where parking is generally already at capacity. Thirdly, though this is a subjective observation, it seems to me that having cars parked on both sides of the street tends to encourage drivers to proceed with caution, as they consider the need to yield space for oncoming vehicles. I have seen this primarily on Regency Drive. While some residents have called for a no parking policy on Regency on our community pages, I would prefer to encourage responsible driving habits and adherence to speed limits. There is an element of personal responsibility at play here that not all residents adhere to. I appreciate the efforts of Kearney Police Department to address speeding issues in the community. However, law enforcement cannot be everywhere all the time. Individuals need to take responsibility for their own driving behavior. Lastly, I am uncertain about the catalyst for this proposed change. If there is an issue that requires a solution, which I may not be aware of, wouldn't it be more logical to explore the possibility of introducing more one-way streets? Is this proposal rooted in concerns about safety, traffic management, or some other issue? I believe that implementing one-way streets would offer a more effective solution than eliminating parking from the streets. Our community does not resemble cities like Chicago or Philadelphia, characterized by dense populations and extensive public transit options. Here, families often own more than 1 vehicle per person, which includes scenarios where individuals have a personal vehicle along with an oversized work vehicle. Implementing such restrictions would result in the inefficient utilization of valuable driveway space, particularly when most driveways can only accommodate 4 vehicles. I wish I could be there for this hearing, but thank you for considering these perspectives. Dave Lingo. After reading the proposed parking ordinance, I am in favor of the changes. Kearney, now that it's larger than when the last parking policy enactment, needs to reduce some congestion caused by on-street parking, and more so the double parking that takes place. I can speak for myself and neighbors that the amount of parking on Regency Drive is a danger, especially with the added traffic from the recent business addition over the past few years. Sincere thanks, Dave. Stephen and Leslie Andrews, Regency Drive. We live on Regency Drive and have for 36 years. Below are our questions and concerns, not in any particular order. 1, please define and provide examples of alleviate traffic and public safety concerns. 2, as mentioned in the recorded board meeting, we heard mentioned a concern of cars parked in front of fire hydrants. I agree it is a concern, and yes, it does happen. Is this the only reason for the proposed change? However, I would like to know the past history of number of tickets, violations issued over the years based on this ordinance below. 355.010, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited. Chapter 355, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited in specified places. And then in quotes, within 15 feet of a fire hydrant. Number 3, in our past experience, not all ordinances are enforced. Not sure who enforces what without a report created by a resident. Will the change of this ordinance be enforced? If so, by whom? Number 4, will this change disrupt mail service when vehicles have moved from the west side of Regency to the east side of Regency and park in front of our mailbox? 5, we have a safety concern now that we deal with. There are multiple vehicles parked on the east side of Regency Drive now. When we attempt to pull out of the driveway, we are very challenged due to the multiple vehicles parked in driveways and on the east side of the street. If we didn't have a vehicle coming sensor, I'm sure we would have had an accident by now. We do not have clear vision if vehicles are coming or not. 6, before this drastic change, has the city considered no parking signs and yellow lines out 15 feet of a fire hydrant and enforce it? At least this would be a positive change and not so drastic. Many thanks for your time. Stephen and Leslie Andrews. Melody Meyer, 405 Meadowbrook Drive. Hi, I live on Meadowbrook Drive and I have a few comments concerning the parking proposal. Meadowbrook Drive is a wide street with a few regularly parked vehicles from 33 Highway to Glenside. While there is traffic before and after school and buses that use Meadowbrook during these times, parked vehicles in this section of the street is not a problem. Enacting a parking restriction on one side would be sufficient for this area. Also, because we have no real side streets for visitors to park nearby, it would be a definite inconvenience on evenings and weekends if the restriction was enacted for both sides of the street. The nearest side streets are the 2 short cul-de-sacs toward 33 and Glenside, which would cause visitors to walk several blocks. Please consider restricting one side of Meadowbrook rather than both. Thank you. Carl Smith, 403 South Merrimack Drive. I would like to suggest Merrimack Drive from 92 Highway north to Washington Street be considered for no parking status. When I first moved here in 2011, there was a no parking this side sign on the west side of the street. It was removed by construction workers building houses on that side and was never replaced. Since then, the second phase of the Porter addition has been built up, and more importantly, Merrimack has become a through street since connecting to Washington Street. There is considerably more traffic than in 2011. Thank you for your consideration. Ron Riley, Meadowbrook Drive. This is Ron Riley, and I live on Meadowbrook Drive. This is about the no parking on our street, so we need this parking for when family and friends come over. If we can't park there, where are we supposed to park? And if it is because of school traffic, maybe more people and the buses should use 19th Street. There is even a light at 33 and 19th, where 33 and Meadowbrook are a mess with all the traffic. Maybe you could at least give us one side. It would help. Thank you. Mark Meyer, 906 Meadowbrook Drive. If parking needs to be restricted due to safety concerns on Meadowbrook Drive, I believe it should be restricted on one side of the street only, preferably the north side that already has some restrictions and less residences. That will enable 2 lanes of traffic to move at the same time and still give the homeowner some street parking when needed. The 800 and 900 blocks of Meadowbrook Drive have few side street options to park for those times when visitors outnumber driveway parking. Thank you. Valerie Potter. I have questions about the proposed parking restrictions as they affect Meadowbrook Drive. Why is this necessary? What exactly does it mean, no parking anytime? I can't find a clear definition in the ordinance of how this would be applied. Does this mean if I have a large gathering at my home with more cars than my driveway can hold, my guests could be ticketed? If I have a garage sale, could the shoppers at my sale be ticketed? If I have work done on my home or yard, does this mean the people doing the work could be ticketed if they are unable to fit their equipment in my drive? Where will people who park on the street to walk the trail park? Could the parents who park on the street to pick up their student from the junior high be ticketed? Since semis carrying construction supplies, dump trucks, and cement mixers seem to have no trouble traveling up and down the street, I believe any necessary piece of emergency equipment would also be able to travel up and down the street. I see no reason to prohibit on-street parking on Meadowbrook. Valerie Potter. Joe Morling, 404 Meadowbrook Drive. I, Joe Morling, live at 404 Meadowbrook Drive, do strongly oppose changing the parking restrictions on Meadowbrook Drive. This is an extra wide street, so 2 vehicles may pass each other, even with a vehicle is parked on the street. This on-street parking also affords people to have guests over during holidays, get-togethers, etc., when their driveways are overflowing. And I am sure they don't want us to have to park in our yards during this time. There are a few vehicles parked along the street from time to time, which helps out to slow people down on this drag strip of Meadowbrook Drive. I have talked to Kearney Police before about this speeding situation, and they have run radar from time to time, but I haven't seen them in some time now. We have lived here approximately 20-something years now and have had a problem other than the speeding situation, so I don't see a need to change it. This is the reason I oppose this change. The Scott family on Regency Drive. I am a resident on the west side of Regency Drive. We have lived here for 3 years and noticed the increase of traffic. I understand your reasoning to disable parking for the west of Regency so that traffic may flow better. However, I don't believe this is accommodating the residents on Regency either side. Why would you try to accommodate the through traffic in a residential area that already has problems with speeders? You should be trying to accommodate the residents who have no sidewalk to walk on by somehow decreasing the through traffic, not helping to increase it. I would suggest speed bumps. For example, if our family members are forced to park on the other side of the street during a family gathering, they will have to cross an even faster and greater influx of traffic. Furthermore, my husband has a work vehicle that we park in front of our house. If there is no parking in front of our neighbor's house, he will be forced to park down the street and walk after a long day's work, if there is even any parking. I have spoken to my neighbors on the opposite side, and they are not a fan of our vehicle, along with everyone else's vehicles constantly parking in front of their house, since their side will be the only option. I urge you to rethink this decision to disallow parking in front of our houses. I have 2 small children, lots of family and friends. I have guests over to my house frequently, and I love living here in the city of Kearney. I think that as residents of Regency Drive, we should be allowed to park in front of our houses. It seems to me as though you are punishing the residents because the rest of the city likes to use our street. Personally, I would rather the cars that use our street as a pass-through to slow down and wait to pass cars when cars are parked on both sides. Thank you for your time. Monica Williams. I have a concern about the streets in Kearney and would like to see the no parking signs on some of the streets. Some of the areas are at risk to where you are not able to see around a parked car if a vehicle would be approaching in the opposite direction. Plus, if you are the person trying to avoid cars parked on both sides of the street with the possibility of an approaching vehicle from the opposite direction and paying attention to kids entering the street from driveways. I believe this to be a safety issue. Also, in some areas, when you have cars parked on both sides of the street, This causes a safety issue for emergency vehicles to make it to a person or home in dire need. This would cause the emergency personnel to have a slower response time. How would you feel if it was your home or loved one that needed help and due to the slower response time was not able to make it to the scene because of parked cars blocking the way? Thank you, Monica. Christina Donzi, 601 Meadowbrook Drive. Our family lives at 601 Meadowbrook Drive and have resided here since 2003. We feel fortunate that our street is much wider than most residential streets in the area. This allows extra space for two-way traffic and one side of the street parking. Our family of 5 owns 6 vehicles altogether. Over the years, we have learned to shuffle our cars, and usually that means 2 are in the street in front of our home, since our driveway had space for 4. 4 cars can be a tight fit for full-sized vehicles. I received notice of the public hearing regarding the discussion on an ordinance to limit parking on the street in front of our own house. I am completely against such a ridiculous idea. I agree with continuing to not permit parking on the north side of the street as it is currently. Where would our family park if that were the case? There are very rare times when the parking is utilized, when someone took a walk in the trail, and if there is a home football game and visitor lots are full. The majority of the time, residents who live on Meadowbrook Drive are the only ones using this space on the south side of Meadowbrook Drive. As mentioned, this street is very wide and traffic flow has no problems when cars are parked in this area. We always allow extra spacing to allow for trash pickup and postal delivery, and will park further away to allow for these as to not block their access to the mailbox and trash pickup location at the end of the driveway. We are not a location of businesses or preventing any city trash, school services, or police from doing their job. In fact, there are many times a police car will join our cars parked in front of our house, and we welcome that. The police cars similar to ours parked on the south side of the street do not impact the flow of traffic at any time. Thanks for your time and allowing me to share my thoughts as I am not able to attend the hearing this evening. 2 more. Greg Gillihan, 810 East 14th Street. I am strongly opposed to any law or enforcement of parking restrictions on our section of 14th Street. There are a number of vehicles that park in the street. This helps to keep speeds low. 14th Street in that section is not a commonly traveled or busy street. This law is decades old and was enacted for older streets in Kearney with no sidewalks or room for parking. This is a waste of resources to implement this on more modern streets. We also have a handicapped son who requires nursing 3 times per day. Where our home is located, the street parking is severely limited. I think adding the main street through Regency would be a poor choice as well. The vehicles parked there impede the speed of traffic. The traffic will need to be encouraged to go a more direct commercial route. If there are individual street sections that this makes sense to have on them, then don't blanket the entire length of the street. Thank you for considering my email, Greg. Justina Edwards, Meadowbrook Drive. Hello, I live on Meadowbrook Drive and I do not agree with the proposed parking restrictions for Meadowbrook Drive. I could understand one side of the road, but not 2. If it does pass, I expect a ticket for every car stopped in the morning and afternoon during school times clear down the street, and especially the ones blocking the driveways.
All right, this time I will close the floor for public comment and input. Any discussion from the board?
We're doing a transportation study currently, correct?
Yes.
Does it address any of this?
It will address what streets, like what traffic ways would need to be widened, what additional streets we might need to put to make sure that over the next 20 years, we don't create congestion because of the growth.
Have we thought about having the traffic engineer look at these? I understand this is a really old ordinance. There are people out there that specialize in traffic studies and what's good for a certain size street. So that would be a comment that I'd have.
Any other questions, input from the board?
No, I don't know. I mean, it seems like Meadowbrook seems to be a hot topic here because it is a wide street. I haven't been down all the streets, but I do think they make a good point with everybody parking for school, different things, and with the football games and stuff over there. I know when Staley comes to town, I got Staley people parking in my front driveway. In fact, we came home one time and they were parking in my driveway. And I asked them, they said, well, we didn't have anywhere to park. And I'm thinking, well, great, but you didn't have to park in my driveway. I know that we do have people that, when they come out of town, it'd be kind of, come to a football game, else they get a ticket,
So I want to make it clear, there's no ordinance for us to vote on this evening, right? The purpose tonight was for us to receive public input and comment from the constituents and residents that live in this area. And at this point, there is no ordinance in form for the board to make an official vote to make any changes. What is the board's desire? I'd like to give staff some sort of direction on, is this something we want staff to continue to spend time on? Or is what direction are we going to give staff here?
I think there's streets that are left off that if we're going to do parking restrictions, I've got some in my own neighborhood that.
My street's already on here.
One of the people commented about Oak Ridge and Pinecrest. I've had to call the police on people that if my house was on fire, there is absolutely no way a fire truck could get down the road because of big vehicles parked there and parked on both sides. So I think we might need to look at this a little bit further as far as the entire town. And I still stick by my thing of, Meadowbrook seems to be a hot topic, and Meadowbrook is one of our widest streets. Regency Drive, I used to live on Regency Drive. They don't have sidewalks. There's a story behind that, but vehicles parked on the street is a traffic calming aspect. It's a proven fact. But I think we need to look at this a little bit more.
My sense is that the main streets, Regency, Meadowbrook, Clear Creek, those are considered collector streets. And I think at one point we did talk about not allowing, cars on collector streets. But I don't know that in practice it makes as much sense, especially when you're talking about a Meadowbrook that is so wide. So I think this is still a good discussion, but I don't think we're ready for an ordinance. I think we should continue the discussion because ultimately safety is the issue that we're trying to address. And that is slowing cars down. And I used to live on Regency Drive. I know I woke up one morning with flashing lights about 2 a.m. in a car in my neighbor's yard. So I get that that's a problem. So I want to continue the discussion, but I don't think we're ready for an ordinance.
So I think that from what I'm hearing, the consensus of the board is to continue to ask staff to work on a document for the board to consider, and keeping in mind safety from not only slowing traffic down, but also for fire and public safety apparatuses.
Well, that's where it gets kind of hard, because as much as we want to give room for ambulances and fire trucks taking cars off, I agree with them. I think it just opens up for more speed. And if a child was to come out, that braking distance changes dramatically. So I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of torn on this idea, because part of me wants to say, yeah, hey, let's leave it as it is, but I do understand that we got to be able to get a fire truck or an ambulance through there. That's what the first concern that was brought to us was about, that very thing. So this isn't an easy one to just say, oh, hey, let's do this by not having any parking. It's something we need to look at. It's just that I don't know that restricting parking is the total answer, or if it's the answer. I don't know that there's a compromise for both, because I do think that if we take the cars off, yes, we're gonna have problems with people having company over. I like to have company over. My people, they would park on the streets. We, just like with Bill Brown, we've got a gentleman in our neighborhood who has a men's group who comes over, and there's probably, you always know when that's in there, there's probably 8 cars that are out on the street that you don't normally see. Well, you know, well, hey, they're over at this guy's house. These are things that play in the quality of life of Kearney too. And when we go saying, hey, you can't park here, you can't do that, we're impeding quality of life. And we've always said that we wanted to make this a great place to live, work, and play. Well, we go doing these things, is that really meeting that mantra? But we also want to be able to get an ambulance if somebody has a heart attack. We want to be able to get a fire truck if there's a fire. So I don't think there's an easy answer to this, and I think it's something we need to look at, but I don't know that we got an easy answer for it.
Yeah, and as we know, sometimes that's where we're elected to make tough decisions sometimes. So appreciate the input from the board. We really appreciate each and every one of you taking time away from your family to show up this evening, share your thoughts and concerns with us. Thank you to everybody who submitted comments. Obviously, all this is part of the record. Your feedback and commentary will be considered if there is any future changes or with the proposed ordinance. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's nothing that's in form ready for the board to vote and make a decision tonight. So thank you so much for being here. You are more than welcome to stay for the entirety of the meeting, but if you'd like to get back to your families, now would be a good time to excuse yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you all discuss and come up with some more proposed changes, will we be notified?
Absolutely.
Yes, but maybe not the same way that you were notified this time. So we had staff go out and make sure there was a notice. I would encourage every single one of you, our meeting agendas are posted online. We are also trying to share the link to Facebook each time. Please check online frequently to see when we post our agendas, so you can see all of the issues that will affect you. And so I am super excited that so many people made it out, and it's because a lot of staff took an entire morning to go put it on people's doors, and we just can't do that each time.
That was very much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next item is a public hearing to receive public comments regarding the 2023 property tax levy. I will do you have anything to say regarding the tax levy before I open up the floor for public comment?
We have an ordinance coming up to improve it, but just real briefly about it, there was a 13.4% increase in assessed valuation for the city of Kearney, which equates to $32.4 million. There was also $4.6 million of new construction, and that equated the general operating fund levy to decrease to roll back 2.78 cents, which is about 5.5%.
This time I'll open the floor for public comment input regarding the proposed 2023 property tax levy. Floor's open. Seeing nobody move, I'll close the floor for public comment and input. Move on to the next item, a public hearing to receive public comments regarding rezoning 16 acres along Nation Road from R1 Low Density Residential to RP1 Low Density Residential Plain District with concept plan proposing 39 single-family residential lots and a detention tract. Staff, do you have anything to add to that?
Not for the public hearing, I think there's
Okay.
a staff comment.
This time I will open up the floor for public hearing and comment. See nobody move, I will close. We'll move forward to the consent agenda. Any items of discussion or questions on the consent agenda from the board? Seeing none, if we can entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to ordinances. The first ordinance is a motion approving bill number 32, 2023, presented by David Pavlich, our Community Development Director. An ordinance amending Chapter 400 of the Municipal Code of Kearney, Missouri, rezoning approximately 16 acres along the west side of Nation Road north of West 19th Street to RP1 Low Density Residential Plain District as requested by Star Acquisitions. Any further comment from staff?
I'll do some brief comments. This area is the very northeast corner of the Stallings Ranch property. It's already zoned to R1 single family. It was identified as a future development tract or something on the preliminary plat. They've come in and they're proposing single-family lots, kind of like villa style, where the yards will be maintenance-free, similar to Falcon Hill Villas down off of 19th Street. Some of the lots' widths would be 70 feet instead of 75 feet wide, so that's the reason for the P in the proposed zoning. The lots are deep enough that they still meet our overall R1 requirements, just that they'll be a little bit narrower. There are also a couple of corner lots where they're proposing a 15-foot setback on the side yard, not the front where the house would face, but the street side yard included in that RP1. Planning zoning recommended approval of the rezoning request.
Alderman Barger, do you have anything to add from the planning and zoning meeting?
I don't. We just wanted to make sure that the overall lot sizes were within the ordinance, and they were.
I believe the applicant and their representation are here. Do you guys have anything to share with the board?
We will.
Okay.
Review with more testimony.
All right. If there are no other questions or concerns from the board, if we can read the ordinance first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 400 of the Municipal Code, the Comprehensive Zoning Regulations of Kearney, Missouri, rezoning approximately 16 acres along the west side of Nation Road, north of West 19th Street, to RP1 Low Density Residential Plan District as requested by Star Acquisitions.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
Okay, so an ordinance amending Chapter 400 of the Municipal Code, the Comprehensive Zoning Regulations of Kearney, Missouri, rezoning approximately 16 acres along the west side of Nation Road, north of West 19th Street, to RP1 Low Density Residential Plan District as requested by Star Acquisitions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Pull the board, please.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Alderman Barger.
Aye.
Vote unanimous. Ordinance passes. Thanks for being here. Next item is a motion approving bill number 33, 2023, presented by Tom O'Leary, our police chief, an ordinance of the city of Kearney, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2024 adopted city budget to add the K-9 fund, a special revenue fund. Chief, do you have anything to add?
I have Officer Parton and his partner here that would like to speak about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Proud Chief.
I hope.
He's had enough. So I'm Officer Parton with Kearney Police Department. I'm one of the K-9 handlers. Our K-9 unit consists of 2 dogs. We're hoping to enact a line item on the 2024 budget that will be used for tracking the expenses for the K-9 unit. We're predominantly a donation and grant funded portion of the police department. We're associated obviously with, like I said, with the PD, through the city.
Canine Yvonne is getting ready to retire. He'll be 10 in a couple months. He had back surgery last year, didn't quite recover from it the way that we were hoping that he was going to. He's also a marijuana imprinted dog. So with the legalization of marijuana over last year, we lost the ability to perform probable cause searches based off of the dog sniffs because he's imprinted on a legal substance. We're predicting to have a fundraiser October 21st. Hopefully we'll raise funds somewhere in the realm of $25,000 for that. I'm also looking heavily into a grant through the United States Police Canine Association for the amount of $7,500. This seems to be very obtainable as well. If we do get the revenue fund put into place, the fundraisers come through, the grants come through, the purchasing of a new canine will be approximately $8,500 just for the dog. There's an additional $4,500 on top of that for training, and then we'll have to take into consideration lodging and food as well during the training period. So hopefully we can cover all that stuff with donation and grants without putting any sort of financial burden on the city.
Thank you, Officer Parton. Any questions from the board?
So our other Crash, our other canine, are they both about the same age, or are they, in fact, there comes JD. Are they both about the same age, or?
No, Crash is 6 now, I believe.
Okay.
So he still has hopefully several good years left in him. Crash was actually one of the first dogs in the Kansas City metro area, as far as narcotic wise, that was not imprinted on marijuana. So those steps were taken into consideration, several years ago in anticipation of this, so that we wouldn't have to be replacing 2 dogs at the same time.
And I know Crash had had some issues in the past. How's he doing?
He's doing good.
Okay, so he's recovered. Okay.
I appreciate you and your handler partner continuing to, Crash was purchased by donation. So thank you and Sergeant Garten and all your contacts, business owners, residents, for continuing to support our canine effort. I think it's an extremely important tool and part of our police department. And I'll tell you, we'll do everything we can to continue to support you. Good luck fundraising, and let us know if you need anything from us. Any questions from the board? Any other input? If not, if we can read the proposed ordinance, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Kearney, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2024 adopted city budget to add the K-9 fund, a special revenue fund.
Move to approve on first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Kearney, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2024 adopted city budget to add the K-9 fund, a special revenue fund.
Make a motion to approve on second reading.
I'll second.
Pull the board.
Alderwoman Barker.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Vote unanimous. Ordinance passes. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. Next item is a motion approving bill number 34, 2023, presented by Kathy Harper, our finance director, an ordinance of the City of Kearney, Missouri, levying and fixing the rate for tax for municipal purposes and for the debt service fund for 2023.
I do not have any additional comments from what I said earlier.
Any questions from the board? If you could read the proposed ordinance first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Kearney, Missouri, levying and fixing the rate of tax for municipal purposes and for the debt service fund for 2023.
Move to approve on first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Kearney, Missouri, levying and fixing the rate of tax for municipal purposes and for the debt service fund for 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Pull the board.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Barker.
Aye.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Vote unanimous. Ordinance passes. Next item is a motion approving bill number 35, 2023, presented by Eric S. Marshall, our park director. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a park reservation agreement between the Kearney R1 School District, a Missouri political subdivision, and the City of Kearney, Missouri, to use the Kearney pickleball courts for the Kearney High School Club Pickleball Program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had the current Kearney softball coach and the assistant coach who really got into pickleball, and they want to form basically a club team through the high school, practicing when we do not have any leagues, tournaments, or events out there. And it's so far, they've had a lot of interest in people signing up. So we want to allow the school to enhance the growth of pickleball by using our courts. And there would be no charge since they are a political subdivision.
Any questions from the board? Request? If we can read the proposed ordinance, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a park reservation agreement between Kearney R1 School District, a Missouri political subdivision, and the city of Kearney, Missouri, to use the Kearney pickleball courts for the Kearney High School Club pickleball program.
Make a motion to approve on first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a park reservation agreement between Kearney R1 School District, a Missouri political subdivision, and the city of Kearney, Missouri, to use the Kearney pickleball courts for the Kearney High School Club pickleball program.
Move to approve on second reading.
Second.
Pull the board, please.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Alderwoman Barger.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Votes unanimous and ordinance passes. No resolutions this evening. Next item, we have our items for review and presentation. We have the August 2023 monthly financial report by Kathy Harper, our finance director. Kathy?
You'll see you have in your package the August 23 financial reports, the unreconciled financial report data for 5 months into the fiscal year, or 42% of the way. There's a couple things I just want to point out. First, I did do a little review of sales tax for the year. Our sales tax for the fiscal year 24 is on par, a little ahead of the sales tax collected versus fiscal year 23. So I know that was some of the questions, wanting to know how we are as proposed versus last year. It's still, we've got a few months left of the year, but it seems like we're on track. Use tax is up a couple 100% versus where it was the year before. And a lot of that is because we didn't have a full year starting our year's tax before, so we're seeing how that's affected.
Kathy, can I stop you there for a minute?
Yeah.
How much of that increase in sales taxes is marijuana generated?
I do not have that information with me, but.
Doesn't start till October.
Yeah, I was gonna say the new, so 2 questions. If you mean the new marijuana sales tax,
Yeah.
that hasn't started yet.
Okay.
But there may be some other taxes here on marijuana income, right? So,
Yeah, I was meaning the sales tax.
additional, the regular tax, so.
Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to point out, if you look at Fund 28, the Highway Construction Fund, there was a deposit this month of $1.3 million from the Missouri Department of Transportation. That was an anticipated refund from the interchange construction project that's going on. So that amount of money, although we've received it, is calculated in the total cost of the project. But I did want to point that out because that was a significant increase in
Sticks
revenues.
out a little bit, yes.
Yeah, so it's always nice when those big ones are revenues in, but.
Yeah. Any questions for our finance director? Thank you for that report. Next item, 2023 NCS governance engagement results by our city administrator.
David, could you minimize the agenda? Because Ryan's gonna, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Not a lot of slides here, but so part of the 2023 National Community Survey results, we already talked about at our last meeting, the survey results as far as livability that residents said. And tonight we're going to talk about the perceptions of our residents about the city's governance and also about how they become engaged. So Ryan, if you could go to the next, thank you. So first of all, the citizens' overall perception of quality of service, we got a score of 68%. And at the same time, they rated the customer service by City of Kearney employees As positive, 81% of people rated an 81%. One of the things that brought us down, residents don't feel necessarily the value of services that they pay for their taxes. They only rated that 48% positively. And in a lot of this, sometimes it's not necessarily that we're not providing good value of service, but it's perception. And so is the city doing a good job of communicating what we are doing for residents? And it's always important to know what citizens are thinking, and then trying to figure out how we can better communicate, because the value of they only rated our public information services as 54% positively, which means that they're not necessarily engaged in paying attention to what we're doing. If you can go to the next page, Ryan. 60% of residents said that the city does a good job of treating all residents with respect.
Hey, Ryan, if you can go back one more slide. Thank you.
56% said that we are doing a good, they approve overall of the direction that Kearney is taking. And you can see they only thought that 47% of people thought that we did a good job of welcoming resident involvement. And 42% said that we did a good job of informing residents about issues facing the community. And so in some of these areas, while we can always do better at providing services, like I'm not disputing that, sometimes maybe we're not doing a great enough job of letting residents know the services that we are providing, if that makes sense. And a lot of times people don't actually know that their property tax levy for the city isn't the same as the school district or isn't the same as the county. And so how do we get that information out? And that brings us to resident participation. So I think this is really telling. These numbers are things that our residents have done in the last 12 months. And of course, it's residents that answered our survey. So 70% of them voted in the most recent election. Only 14% of them campaigned or advocated for a local issue, cause, or candidate. Only 20% of them attended a local public meeting, and only 21% of them actually watched a local public meeting. And 44% contacted the city of Kearney for help or information. And only 16% reached out to their elected officials, you guys, to express their opinion. And so what I am really curious about, and I think you guys probably are too, is if you go to the last page, asking residents how often they do certain things, the question for us is, how do we make it easier for people to be engaged and to participate? Because the more that people are engaged and participating, just like tonight, you got lots of feedback about a subject, and if they hadn't bothered coming or reaching out, we wouldn't know what they were thinking. And so you can see that only 27% typically share their opinion online during a week. But 96% of them access their internet from their cell phone, and 94% of them use or check their email at least once a week. 93% of them are accessing the internet from their home, but only 86% of them are visiting social media sites. So using this information and Polco to try to get feedback, figuring out what tools do we need to invest in, and how can we encourage and make it easier for people to get involved. That's all I have.
All right, thank you for sharing that. A little surprised, a little disappointed in some of the feedback there, but it gives us a good good mark on and some things we can work together with staff to do better. So always room for improvement. We'll move on to mayor's communications. I have 2 items I want to mention this evening. First is on September 9th, I was contacted by Kearney resident Donna Gross, and she shared with me some information about her concerns of the lack of government providing individual freedoms to the residents, specifically in regards to her thoughts of a possible COVID breakout again. I did share that video link and information that she provided with me and with the city administrator, and asked the administrator to get that to the board at the request of our resident. Next item I want to mention is I want to give our park director the opportunity to share with the board an update from the Missouri Municipal League luncheon where we received an award. And do you have the award with you this evening?
The award is downstairs.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we'll eventually add it to our display case, and I know the board is aware, but the pickleball facility did win an award from the Missouri Municipal League, so.
It was a nice luncheon. We had some of the aldermen people there. Our park board members were there. It was nice to be recognized for a great project with the by being used funded by the use tax. So we were excited about it, and we continue to see great growth and a lot of participation from old and young alike down there. So it was nice. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll move on to the city administrator's report.
I just want to let everyone know that the Polk Pit Bull survey about whether or not the city should keep the current ordinance in place or repeal it, it is underway. It's going to stay open until October 12th. So far, what we've done is we send an email to people who were already signed up for the Polko platform. We have shared on social media. We are getting ready to do an advertisement with the newspaper and also the radio station. And we will be putting information on the back of utility bills. We've put posters around town at public places with the QR code. And so we are trying to get the word out as widely as possible.
Do you know roughly how many verified responses we received today?
We have received 143 verified responses so far. The next item that I have is to let you all know that we will be having a transportation master plan workshop that will be held on Tuesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. and that will be held at the Mid-Continent Public Library in Kearney. And if you can, I would love it if you guys could come by. There's going to be, it will be interactive. And so hopefully you can make that. And then the next regular Board of Aldermen meeting will be Monday, October 2nd at 6:30 p.m.
I will not be here for that meeting. It will be important.
David. Maybe.
We'll move on to Alderman discussion. Alderman Barger.
I would like to bring up something that I've actually talked to the city administrator about, but that's the trash service. First of all, I want to give kudos to the city staff because you guys have worked really hard to try to take care of those issues, but I'm a little disappointed in our vendor in how every week we're hearing about city residents not getting their trash picked up. It's somebody that we contract out with, but it reflects poorly on the city. And I know that city staff has forwarded that disappointment to our vendors, but I just think that we need to demand more from them. And I don't know that the contract has a lot of teeth in it for us to do a whole lot about it. I know it's a multiple year contract, so I don't know if we have any other options at this point, but I just want to say two things. One, we're working as a city to try and resolve these issues. The city staff is working really hard, but residents, if you have issues, you need to let us know, because that's how we can take it to the vendor and hope to resolve some of these issues.
It was better today.
Last week was the first week that my block was picked up consistently. Today, when I got home before the meeting, I spent 30 minutes outside picking up trash and broken glass from my trash today, which my trash wasn't over full, or I don't know what happened, but glass jars that were now ran over, I was out picking up this afternoon. So I've continued to personally have issues, and so have a lot of my neighbors and residents. So, and I've done the same. I've shared that with staff.
Was it at your house? I'll turn that in.
Yeah, today.
Okay.
So,
We're having trouble getting recycle picked up.
Yeah.
They're picking up the trash, but they're not picking up the recycle.
We did too.
I know when myself, staff met with Republic, and they notified us, per our contractual agreement, they have the opportunity to make these changes. My concern that I shared at that time is I understand how operationally this makes sense for Republic, but we want to make sure that it makes sense for the community too. And we always have the option as a board we can look at ways to cancel the contract and look at other vendors if we feel that's the best option for the city. So.
Then get it resolved, maybe.
Yeah. What else do you have?
That's it.
That's it. Alderman Lehman?
So I had the opportunity to be able to go to the Missouri Municipal League lunch, and I'll pass that down to you. And it was a great lunch. There was a lot of people there. And I thought it was quite ironic that there were a couple of tables around us that when it came up that we were getting an award for pickleball and skate park, there was some comments at one of the tables behind us is like, why are they getting an award for this? We've got pickleball courts. And it was quite funny when the video came up and they showed the drone. I'm assuming that was a drone picture of our complex. And the comment that came out of the same table, I think it was the same person, was like, that's why. And so it was very impressive, the presentation. And it was a proud moment for somebody who's lived here all their life to see the city get awarded something like that. So kudos to the Parks Department and the city for putting Kearney on the map again. I have a friend that's a city councilman in Kearney, or in Liberty, and he constantly razzes me about the fact that Kearney has more pickleball courts than Liberty does. So he's not real happy about it either. So, and they're always used.
Alderman Lehman, if I could, I was supposed to attend that luncheon and didn't make it, but I do appreciate you and Alderman Spencer, I believe, from the board that represented us, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Alderman Holt?
I just want to say kudos to our Parks Department for keeping the splash pad open. We had several people that came in for Jesse James Festival, and they came by, and on their way up there, they had stopped in, and we're eating here in town. We heard them talking about, wow, this is a cool town. Did you see that splash pad? And they're talking about the splash pad. Of course, we were at the Creamery, so we're right across from it, but we were talking about that. So it was really good that got to stay open when there was a lot of visitors that came through town that was coming in for the Jesse James Festival. And maybe those people didn't realize that, hey, we've got this beautiful facility downtown. But it was well attended, even though it was kind of rainy. While our parks guys were up there trying to win a barbecue contest, there was a lot of young people down here who were getting wet. And it was really good to see that the park was being utilized like it was. And I think that by keeping it open during the Just Games Festival, I think was a very smart move, and kudos to you guys for keeping that open.
All right, we do have an executive session notice up this evening, a closed session per RSMO 610-021 subsection 1, legal actions, causes of action, or litigation involving a public governmental body and any confidential or privileged communications between a public governmental body or its representatives and its attorneys, and per 610-021 subsection 13, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment. And just a reminder, our meeting will be adjourned once that we complete the executive session. So this does conclude our public portion of the meeting. Thank you for being here this evening.